We now turn to The Hague on the fourth day of hearings into Israel's shutdown and ban of UNRWA, the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees. The case has been brought forward by Norway, who accuses Israel of breaching international law by preventing vital humanitarian aid from reaching Gaza and repeatedly targeting aid groups like UNRWA. Back in October, Israel shut down the UN Relief Agency's offices and prevented it from operating in Gaza or the occupied Palestinian territories, and sparking international outrage. Despite providing vital humanitarian assistance for 5.9 million Palestinians, Israel says 12 of UNRWA's 13,000 staff in Gaza had taken part in the attacks on October 7th. So far, the World Court has heard statements from more than 20 countries, including the UK, France, Spain, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. All have urged Israel to comply with its legal obligations to Palestinians under its military occupation. Only two countries have spoken in its defense: Hungary and the United States. Yesterday, U.S. Department official Joshua Simmons addressed the court, arguing that Israel wasn't obligated to allow a third-party agency to operate inside Gaza.
Even if an organization offering relief is an impartial humanitarian organization, and even if it is a major actor, occupation law does not require an occupying power to allow and facilitate that specific actor's relief operations. An occupying power may also fulfill its humanitarian obligations toward the civilian population while advancing its own military and security interests.
Now, earlier this week, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar went even further. He said the hearings at the ICJ were not about justice, but weaponizing legal institutions to render Israel defenseless. Now, there is a lot riding on what happens at The Hague this week, because at the heart of this legal back and forth is a question about whether Israel can and will be held accountable for the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Tomorrow marks 2 months since Israel imposed a complete block on aid entering the besieged enclave, denying more than 2.3 million Palestinians basic food, fresh water, and vital medical supplies. More than 3,600 children were admitted to health facilities with acute malnutrition in April, a sharp increase on the month prior. This while airstrikes have intensified since Israel unilaterally broke a ceasefire with Hamas it had agreed to back in January. Speaking on Tuesday as part of the Palestinian delegation to The Hague, Irish barrister Blineni Harali told the court that the shutdown of UNRWA, coupled with the closure of the Rafah crossing as well as a maritime blockade, has completely cut off Gaza from the rest of the world.
Violation of the court's order to maintain open land crossing points, in particular the Rafah crossing, previously described by the UN High Commissioner as, quote, the symbolic lifeline for 2.3 million people in Gaza. Israel has closed all crossings, and it has turned Rafah itself, once a refuge for almost 1.5 million displaced Palestinians, into a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Now, to tell us more, we're joined now from outside of The Hague by MEE reporter Sundus Asam. Sundus, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mohammed, for having me.
You have been sitting through all the hearings this week. You've been listening to all of the different delegations speaking. What has been the overarching message that you've heard?
Well, the resounding message that the majority of states here have pointed out since the beginning of the hearings on Monday is that Israel has a clear legal obligation to facilitate the entry of humanitarian relief into Gaza, and that the full ban on UNRWA, which the Israeli Knesset approved back in October, is in violation of Israel's international legal obligations. So far, 30 states have delivered oral interventions. Right now, as we speak, the United Kingdom is addressing the court. The majority of states, as you highlighted earlier, with the exception of the United States and Hungary, have disputed Israel's allegation that it has a discretion on its ability to facilitate or allow humanitarian relief into Gaza, including allowing the work of United Nations agencies like UNRWA, or even the work of third states. Now, this advisory opinion is very precise. It's basically based on a request from the General Assembly to the International Court of Justice to rule on a number of questions, basically pertaining to Israel's obligations under international law with regards to the presence and activities of United Nations agencies, international NGOs, as well as third states in relation to occupied Palestinian territories. Throughout this week, states have pointed out a number of legal arguments. First of all, there is an emphasis on the absolute immunity that UNRWA and other UN agencies enjoy under international law. And this is based on the 1946 Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of UN agencies, to which Israel is a party, and also in accordance with the UN Charter of 1945. States have argued that both the legal ban on UNRWA and any attacks on its facilities or personnel violates the 1946 Convention and is in clear violation of the United Nations Charter. But also there have been arguments with regards to Israel's obligations under international humanitarian law, which is the law governing armed conflicts, and in particular the Fourth Geneva Convention, which deals with the situations of occupation, or how civilians are treated under occupation, such as the situation in occupied Palestine right now.
And we heard the US.
The argument is basically that the obligation of Israel towards the civilians under its occupation is not limited by any arguments related to military necessity or security. And that's exactly the argument that the US has been trying to advance during this week, and also Hungary and of course Israel, that it has the right under international law to hinder or curtail the work of UN agencies, basically on the basis of securing its interests or its security.
Now, the hearing was ignited by a petition from Norway's government, and earlier today you spoke to Norway's Deputy Foreign Minister, Andreas Mostfeldt Kreivik. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Difficult to describe it. It's a living nightmare which is unfolding on the Gaza Strip. You have people living in tents. They have been forced to move not just one or two or three times, but multiple times. There's a lack of medicine, there's a lack of water, food supplies, there's a lack of everything that people need to survive. And in the middle of everything, you have hostilities being conducted. And the number of civilians having been killed or maimed is again, unconscionable. So we have to do everything we can to make this stop. And we are operating and we're taking many initiatives. This is one of them, because we think it's important to get the normative issue clarified. So we want the ICJ to pronounce on the legal side of things. But then, of course, also we need to do more than that. So we are one of the biggest donors in terms of giving financial assistance to humanitarian organizations so that they can provide relief. But also we're working with other partners in order to realize the two-state solution. And we're in close contact not only with our European partners, but also our partners in the Middle East. And I think we stand together in working towards a two-state solution where you have a self-standing sovereign Palestinian state and, of course, an Israeli state with safe and recognized borders. So that's what we're trying to bring about, and this is one of many initiatives.
Now, Sundus, the legal case against Israel, we've seen many challenges come forward in several different arenas over the course of the last 18 months. A number of them have been at the UN, whether the General Assembly or the Security Council, where the United States has come in and used their veto power to try and shut down any kind of decisive action that takes place. And so you've seen instead some of these other countries, some of these smaller countries that have taken up the mantle in the international courts, whether the ICC or here at the ICJ. Norway is one of them. South Africa is another. Have these cases encouraged other countries to come forward as well?
Well, absolutely. The number of states participating in this week's proceedings is quite significant. It's not only states that are politically opposed to Israel, but we see states that are traditionally allied with Israel, like Western states, declaring that Israel's conduct is unlawful under international law. It's quite significant. Definitely will have an impact on mobilizing other nations to follow suit. And as the Deputy Foreign Minister said, there's a huge multilateral summit in June where the two-state solution and Palestinian statehood will be discussed, and it's part of an effort by Norway and some of its allies to basically diversify their efforts, whether on the legal fronts or the political or diplomatic fronts, to try to resolve the dire humanitarian crisis. But all eyes are on Gaza right now. This case is not detached from the situation on the ground. We've heard from almost all delegations an emphasis on the looming famine and the continued starvation of Gaza civilians, with nearly 2 months of a complete blockade and denial of the entry of humanitarian aid. So this legal action is quite significant in terms of pronouncing the illegality of what's going on right now, but also it's reflective of a growing global consensus on the illegality of Israel's conduct in Gaza and occupied Palestine.
Sundus Asam, outside of the International Court of Justice, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Now, tomorrow will be the final day of hearings at the ICJ, and you can keep up to date by following Sundus Asam's reporting on our website, middleeasteye.net. And stay tuned as we turn now to heightening tensions between India and Pakistan in the aftermath of a deadly attack in the contested region of Kashmir.